Hey, so it's been about a year since I started my channel, and I thought I'd give you guys a little behind the scenes. Actually, I started it in June, so it's been over a year, but I didn't really ever intend to build a YouTube channel. I just wanted a place to host my turntables for my blog, and on a whim, I kind of just made a tutorial style video, and it did really well, and you guys liked it, so I just kept going. But my goal isn't to become a full-time YouTuber. I just do what I've always done, except to make a video about it at the end. But you guys have been incredibly supportive. In fact, I just hit 10,000 subscribers, which is crazy to me, but I appreciate it. And I've been having a lot of fun because the interaction is kind of a new thing for me with my hobby, so thank you. So yeah, let me give you a little tour behind the scenes. I'll show you what I'm working on. And I also asked you guys to leave questions for me to answer, so I'll be answering some of your questions too. But anyway, so here's my hobby desk right here. That's where I hobby, right? That little side of that desk. And I work from home, a desk job, so I basically live right here. Yeah, so there's my little hobby desk. Again, that's where I work, just this little side part. It's an old house, so there's no lighting. This painting lamp is the only light I have in the entire room, but I have my windows open all the time, so I get some pretty good light in here. Back here is my hobby cabinet. This isn't all miniature stuff. I have other creative pursuits, and they all kind of live in here. Oh, by the way, here's my wall of homies. People send me stickers, I put them up there. Try to get this light pointed at the cabinet. There we go. So yeah, this isn't all Warhammer stuff. Basically, this row here is my bits. These are supplies and more bits. Up here is supplies for other things, but also hobby stuff is starting to encroach. Stickers and t-shirts, and then music down here at the bottom. Up on top is my painting stuff. Because I work in such a small area, I can't really be set up for painting and kit bashing at the same time, so I have to switch back and forth. So when it's painting time, I grab this carry case right here, and I set it up right here. Boom. Obviously, this is my little clamp where I put my phone. So there's that familiar painting angle that you guys are used to. And that's just like a little stand that I can swing out of the way when I'm not using it. And then when it's time for kit bashing, I come over here and I grab this tub right here. This is where my most common tools are for the actual kit bashing. Oh, by the way, paintbrushes and stuff go down here. Glue. So yeah, my most common tools are here. Pretty much everything I need. And then these are supposed to be my current works in progress that I'm actively working on, but I'm lazy and I don't really organize well. So things that go in here end up just staying in here forever. For example, I'm not really working on Witch Hunters right now for Mordheim, but this is where all my Mordheim stuff lives. Nurgle Bug Knights, that's coming up later. So I'm not working on them at this exact moment, but I put them there and I'm not gonna move them because I'm lazy. But yeah, if I use this system properly, it's kind of nice to be like, oh, I wanna work on this Chaos Lord and Terminator armor, it looks like. That's all of his bits. So I'll just kind of do that and then dump them out, start working. Speaking of organization, I do kind of have a system, but I mean, it works for me. I don't think anyone else will be able to find bits if I ask them to in my system, but here's most of my bits right here. And when I first started this hobby over 10, probably closer to 15 years ago, these cases here were enough, but they're not really anymore. Mrs. KITBASH Chaos made these for me. But basically this was organized by project, and then there's like a key. Oh, I guess I don't have one for this one, hang on. Get down here. There we go. This one has a key. So basically I made myself this little thing. It says, you know, this cubby here is supposed to be torsos. In reality, it gets all mixed up, but I try to keep it that way. So this is all the shoulder pads for my Black Templars. This is actually, what is this? This is an old current works in progress, but I haven't looked at this in probably 5 years. Let's see what I was working on. You are, oh, these are like old Warcry models. I'm gonna make something out of those. Oh, I know what these are. These are true scale Black Templar Firstborn before Primaris. Or maybe I made them in response to Primaris, because I think I didn't want to do Primaris at first. So I was true scaling them using Terminator legs. Man, I should finish this squad. Yeah, these are like this is like a Black Templar's kill team. That's pretty cool. Yeah, those Terminator legs look pretty good.
Looks like this guy doesn't have a hand weapon yet. I missed this old Black Templar's kit, the upgrade sprue. Dang. Maybe I'll send these to somebody because I don't know if I have a use for them. Oh man. Yeah, I was planning on true scaling them using these Blood Warriors legs because they're bigger than the old Firstborn Marines, so I scraped off all the corn symbols. And they have leather boots, but that's fine. I don't know if you guys remember, but a long time ago, people used to true scale their Space Marines using the old Warriors of Chaos kit because they're bigger than the old Space Marines. Those static monopose warriors. It was from Bolter and Chainsword Forum. I'm not sure who did it. So I was planning to do an upgraded version of that with these more dynamic poses with the leather boots. Found another box that I haven't looked at for a while. This one here is just labeled big boys. So anything that wouldn't fit in those boxes goes in here. So monsters and vehicles and big robots. Oh, it's stuck. There we go. So a lot of demon prints stuff. Looks like I got Mortarion in here. What else we got under here? Oh yeah, I think this might have been my first attempt at a Demon Prince. I should finish him someday too. Pretty cool. It's kind of Zinchi. This is a Varangard mount head. This is a Lord of Change arm. And then this hand, I believe, is a Drukhari something or other with a big Talos, I think it's called. And then the body, or the legs, are the zombie dragon from AOS, I think. Man, I should finish some of these monsters here. So like I said, I've been doing this hobby for over 10 years, probably closer to 15 years. So my bits have exploded way beyond this system. And now I just kind of keep them in the shipping boxes that they come in from the bits websites. I do have a few official kits, but I only buy them if I need every single bit in the kit. And I try to get them from local stores just to support the local people. But now new bits just end up in these shipping boxes that they come in. And now I mostly organize them by project in Ziploc bags. So for example, here's just a bunch of rocks or anything that might go on a base. I just throw them in that Ziploc bag. Here are my Chaos Ogres in progress and spawn. I showed these off in one of my very first videos. I haven't really made any progress on them, but I'm trying to do ogres with all the different marks of chaos. My Tzeentch guys, if you watch that video, they have eyeless helmets. So I figured my Chaos Ogre with the mark of Tzeentch should also have an eyeless helmet. It's made out of two, not really sure what. I think it's part of a gauntlet for like some big Skaven monster, just glued together to make a helmet. And these horns, I think, come from that vulture creature from Cruel Boys. So I've just got a bunch of these shipping boxes full of bags that are labeled by project. I kind of know where they are most of the time, but not knowing exactly where they are is it's kind of part of my process because by searching for the bit that I think I want, I find a lot of stuff that I forgot I had. And, gives me new ideas. Over here to the left of my desk is my display cabinet where all my finished stuff goes. It's kind of hard to get to, but I don't really need to look at it that often. The top shelf is my most finished stuff, which is obviously all Warriors of Chaos, because that's my main focus. There's my Nurgle wing of the army. Khorne is up here on the top back shelf. And then the second shelf down is Chaos Undivided. And then we've got Tzeentch, Slaanesh. There's my Mordheim warband, some unfinished projects, Black Templars, and it goes all the way down. Lots of unfinished things. Actually, as a little treat, just because you guys support me and you're watching this video, let me give you guys a little preview of my next character. I'm not going to get too close because I don't want to spoil the surprise, but this is my Green Knight for my Warriors of Chaos with the Mark of Nurgle, because they're Bretonnians, they're corrupted Bretonnians. I've got a really cool base plan for him that I'm hoping will turn out well. And he's not done himself, this isn't the finished product. But yeah, stay tuned because he's the last character that I had planned for the Nurgle wing of my army, and then I'm going to move on to the next mark, which I think is going to be Tzeentch. But yeah, when I first started out on this project of making all my favorite models from the book for every Mark of Chaos, he was the last one I had planned. I did add a few more. I guess you could call them like a stretch goal. One of them is those Bug Knights I mentioned. The other one is Sorcerer on a Manticore, so I'll be using this. But again, those are just bonus. Once I'm done with that Green Knight, I'll be done with what I set out to do with the Mark of Nurgle. In fact, let me show you how I keep track of this. So I've got this little spreadsheet here. Let's see if I can zoom in. And you can see all the units that I want to make here with their marks and little color codes to show how much I've done. This is probably out of date, by the way. But for example, my Demon Prince for the Mark of Undivided has been modeled, but he's not been painted. But my Demon Prince for Nurgle is totally done and based, so he's purple. The lore for my Bretonnians are done too, my Nurgle Bretonnians.
I just have to edit that and post it to my blog. I think it's about 8 pages long. I'm pretty proud of it though, so I can't wait to get it up there. I've also started the lore for my Tzeentch units, which is why I think I'm going to work on those next, because I'm pretty inspired. It's based around that sentient manticore sorcerer that I talked about back in my old Warriors of Chaos showcase video from last year. And I think you guys are going to like it. I can't wait to show it off and do the lore for it. Another army that I've been working on a lot lately, lore-wise, are my Black Templars. I'm kind of gearing up to work on them again. I think I've come up with a pretty unique take on the Black Templars that has really captured my imagination. Black Templars are my oldest army. They're what I started with when I started the hobby. And I do have some old lore written, pre-Primaris lore. My lore goes right up to the opening of the Great Rift, like right when the Primaris showed up, which I was at 8th edition, I think. And I kind of left it on a cliffhanger at that point. But lately I've had some inspiration for what I want my crusade to look like. Now that they're kind of re-emerging after decades of being isolated behind the Great Rift in the Imperium Nihilus, with no contact from the Imperium. They don't even know that the Imperium survived. So they're changed. They're still loyal, but they're a little unorthodox now in their beliefs and their organization. I'll post some links down in the description of this video to my blog where you can read my older pre-Primaris lore for my crusade, leading right up to the opening of the Great Rift. Besides that, I've got a bunch of other projects in progress. I mean, you guys saw my bits box and my work in progress cabinet, but the core of my hobby is always going to be Warriors of Chaos and Black Templars and Word Bearers. Can't forget the Word Bearers. All right, but let's answer some of your questions. I asked you guys to leave me questions, and let's do it. So Swarby8D asks, what's your favorite box for taking kitbashes from? For me, I think it definitely has to be the Putrid Blight Kings. If you're doing anything Nurgle, they just have so many great parts. I agree. That's one of my favorites too, because they have such a cool medieval knight look, but their proportions are twisted. And if you go for just the armor parts and not the really mutated parts, you can make any kind of fantasy character. In fact, I talked about that in my generic fantasy warband video that I posted recently. You just kind of fill in the little holes that are in the rotten surface of the metal and smooth it out, and you've got a really cool fantasy knight. So I always look in Putrid Blight Kings when I'm looking for bits online, just to see what's available. I also really like the old Chaos Knights kit, the one that's for the old world, because all the parts are separate, the heads are all cool, and most importantly, I always look for the shoulder pads, because those are great to put on any Warriors of Chaos character. If you're putting a torso and an arm together from different kits that don't go together, there's always a weird seam on the shoulder. You just put those old Chaos Knight shoulder pads over the seam and it just covers it up, and you don't have to do much blending or anything. The Khorne Skull Crushers, I believe, the guys riding the Juggernauts, they're constructed the same way. So they make great Chaos Warriors of all types. Almost all of my Chaos Warrior characters have Skull Crusher bits. I just scrape off the Khorne symbols. Alfred Doe asks, what's your favorite candy flavor? Dark chocolate. Which of the 4 Chaos Gods is your favorite? And do you have another artistic medium that you practice outside of the miniature hobby? My favorite Mark of Chaos, I like them all for different reasons, but I think my favorite one is models that have the Mark of Tzeentch but are melee oriented. I don't know why. I just think it's kind of cool to have a magic themed army, but a model that hits things with a sword. I don't know why. And I like the aesthetics of Tzeentch, like the shimmering multicolored plate and the mutations, but I also just like swords and axes. Wizards are cool too, don't get me wrong. I have a wizard robe that I use to keep warm in the winter. I'm a wizard guy. But just something about the Mark of Tzeentch, but like a melee character, I just like that. For artistic mediums outside the hobby, yes, I do 3D modeling. It's my day job. I've been doing that for over 20 years. I do character art. I've done a bunch of Warhammer fan art in 3D as well. In fact, my avatar is something I made, and the banner on my YouTube channel is also something I made. I do music as well. I used to be, like in high school, I was like in a black metal band with like long hair and everything. Sometimes I play around with synth. I've got a little keyboard and I play around with VCV Rack. I'm not very good at it, but I did get, somehow got featured in the 28 Mag album that they put out. They asked for submissions and I sent one of my like ambient songs and they took it. So it's on there. I'll post a link in the description if you want to listen to it. Someone named Army Firefighter asks, how does the lore influence your kit bashes? Does the lore influence where you may look in a particular kit for bits? For example, beyond things like colors, would you kit bash a combi weapon lieutenant differently for a Raven Guard versus a White Scar? Yes. Based on the lore of how they fight? Yes. So I think I pick what armies I like based on how much I can kit bash them. It's an airplane flying over, hang on. I'll just let it play. You guys are just gonna have to enjoy that sound. But yeah, I think I'd pick what characters and Space Marine chapters I'm interested in because of how kit bashable they are. That's why I like Black Templars, because every single model can be a unique character basically. So yeah, I would do Iron Hands differently. Like if I had an Iron Hands character that I was doing like a combi weapon, my brain would go, that's 2 weapons in one. So instead of doing a combi Milta, I would have him have a bolter and a Melta on his shoulder, like on an arm or something. So yeah, definitely the lore influences the way I kit bash stuff. Someone named Pazangazong, I don't know how you guys pronounce your names. They ask, how do you start planning out the lore for your characters? I don't know exactly. I think it's a mix of accidentally making something cool and then coming up with a reason retroactively after I've glued bits together. Or it also depends on the army, really. Like with Warriors of Chaos, I like to do something other than just warriors from Norska who just went on a quest to the north and got stronger and became Chaos Lords or whatever and came back down. I really like to think of characters who don't come from the Chaos Wastes, who got corrupted somehow. Maybe they went up there to get power, but they come from the south somewhere, or they come from somewhere else in the world. And I like to think of ways that Chaos can corrupt things that are normally good, or normally considered good in the universe. So, like, for example, my Bretonnians, first of all, I just like that obscure story of the Order of the Flyblown Chalice, I think it's called, Order of the Fly, which I didn't come up with the idea of Nurgle corrupted Bretonnians. They're in the lore somewhere, very, like, an obscure reference. But the thing I liked about them was the Bretonnians are all about the realm and protecting the realm, and the realm is sacred. So I really wanted my Nurgle Bretonnian theme to be a corruption of the land. So everywhere my Demon Prince steps, the land is literally corrupted and it spreads out from his feet, and, like, you know, there's worms and stuff squirming out of the earth. My Nurgle Sorceress is pouring out a chalice, and that's going down and corrupting the ground. So that's kind of the theme, is that's a corruption of the realm. So I kind of start with just a kernel of that, either just a little kernel of lore and build from there, or I throw something together on my kit bashing table and then retroactively come up with a whole story based on that, just to justify why I glued those bits together. Someone named Cyan Solar asks, do you have an artist who influences your conversions? Yes, definitely. I love collecting books and zines. Dang, that plane is getting loud. So I love collecting books and zines and old school blogs and stuff, but I have, my bookshelf is really messy right now because I haven't organized for a while, and I started organizing and then stopped, which is the messiest it can possibly be. But I got a bunch of old rule books here. You know, I've got books that miniature artists put out, like this one by Mold right here. A bunch of other art. But yeah, let me show you a couple of my favorites. So we got this one here that I mentioned, Mold. This is just basically just a photo book of really weird kit bashes. Highly recommend this if it's even still available. I love these ones that are just picture books. I've also got Mini Freaks by Miscast Trent and TotallyNotPanicking Matt. This one's really cool because every other spread is a different person. So this one looks like Miscast to me, I think. This one would be Totally Not Panicking, Miscast, and so on. And again, it's just a picture book. Very cool. One of my absolute favorites is the art of, and I believe you say her name, Anna Palanchik. I could be totally wrong. You guys probably know her as Gardens of Hecate. This is one of my all-time favorite books because it shows off her art, her miniatures, and her process a little bit. But it's mostly, it feels like a storybook almost. I mean, it's not written exactly like a story, but it feels like you're traveling through a world and exploring, and I don't know, it's hard to describe. It just feels like you're immersed in the world as you're going through the book, instead of talking too much about techniques and, you know, I was about to say and supplies, as I turned right to the supplies page. But I highly recommend this book, The Art of Anna Palanchik. Of course, I have to mention 28 Collected. 28 Mag is a free magazine online. You can get the PDFs online for free,
but they recently just compiled a bunch of their articles into a physical book, which I think is still available at the time I'm recording this, but incredible artists here. A little bit of tutorials, some articles, just a huge variety of really, really talented people in the miniature painting and kitbashing world. I'm also a huge fan of this old school fantasy art. Frank Frazetta is one of my favorite painters. Just gotta look at the luminaries and masters in all mediums if you want to get good at whatever your medium is. Another artist I like who's not part of the miniature world, I guess they kind of are if you think about it, but Syd Mead is one of my favorite sci-fi artists. The reason I say he's part of the miniature world is because he designs a lot of the props for old school movies, you know, when they used to make miniature sets and vehicles. So there's Blade Runner, a lot of Blade Runner stuff in this book. Syd Mead is one of my favorite artists. This kind of looks like the Sulaco from Aliens, I think. I'm not really sure. Yeah, good stuff. Another non-miniature artist that I'm a huge fan of, big influence on me, is, I'm going to butcher his name, but Jose Gabriel Alegria Sabogal. I don't know. This is a really cool book. It's kind of hard to describe. It's kind of like, what if the Gnostics won the Orthodoxy wars in Christianity? What would Catholic art look like if the Gnostics had won? I guess that's the only way to describe it. I don't know. That's probably not his intention, but that's what I took out of it. So it's kind of like bringing the old ancient Gnostic art up to like the Middle Ages and really fleshing it out. Really, really cool. Just a little tease. This is the book that's influencing my Black Templars the most. I want them to be kind of, I don't know, if Black Templars are space Catholics, I want my space Catholics to be weird Gnostic space Catholics. Another artist who I really recommend you get into if you're into making creatures and stuff is Sean Andrew Murray. Huge fan of him. He's got this cool book called Gateway, Book of Wizards, and it's just kind of a world building book where he creates this world. It's like a giant city. So it's like a giant massive city called Gateway, and it seems like everyone in it is a wizard of some sort. And it's just fleshing out the locations and the characters and the different factions. I actually don't know if it's a miniature game setting or a role-playing game setting, but it should be. In fact, it might be kind of fun to set a one-off event in the city of Gateway. Maybe I'll do that. But he's pretty big in the concept art world, so he's done a lot of concepts for movies. He does really cool creatures. Spent a lot of time on that question, but it's important. You know, if you're doing art, you should definitely look at references and find good inspiration. No artist works in a vacuum. Next question by L. Sizza, I think. Question unrelated to the hobby. Do you have any pets? I did. Until recently, I had a big mastiff named Baylit, named after a character from the Conan books. Unfortunately, she died. She got old. She lived to the maximum that a big mastiff normally lives, so she had a nice long life. Another question here. How far do you plan ahead for kit bashing and converting? Do you plan the whole army before starting a single one, scouting bits, planning a theme, and doing a lot of research for what bits and conversions and proxies you need? Do you plan as you go, making changes to the tone and theme of the army and kit bashes as you find inspiration along the creative journey and dissuasions from things you've made and don't like? Do you ever make spontaneous kit bashes? Or maybe just on the fly changes to them, just using your bits and seeing what sticks without getting anything specifically for the kit bash? It's a long question, but kind of all of those. I have had the theme for each of the 4 marks of chaos in my army in my brain for a long time. And I've been going basically on those themes, which I picked before I really started. I've been going with those themes for the whole time. I haven't really changed the themes too much. There is some push and pull because the story does change a little bit as I kit bash. So one example is my Nurgle Demon Prince. I did that for a competition where you had to kit bash a Demon Prince or a Spawn with one of the 4 marks of chaos. And originally he was going to be Mark of Khorne. And the story was sort of similar. It was going to be a Knight of the White Wolf from Middenheim who was executed for like political reasons, like not even truly honorable reasons, just some politician in the city wanted him out of the way for some reason. And they really wanted to disgrace him, so they, for some reason, I can't really remember the story, but for some reason they poured silver on his body, and then, as he was dying, he called out to whatever god would answer, and Khorne was the one who answered, and so he rose up from the dead, covered in that silver. So that was going to be the basis of my story for my Khorne units, is that they're Knights of the White Wolf, and that was why they fell, because all of his men followed him. But as I was working on that, I really liked that helmet that I picked from Saint Decent, and it didn't feel like Khorne to me or Knights of the White Wolf. It felt like more like Nurgle. So then I changed it to a Nurgle marked Demon Prince, and similar story where he goes on a Grail quest, he drinks from the wrong Grail, gets infected with all the Nurgle diseases, and then he goes home to present himself as a Grail Knight, and obviously he's not looking good, so they encase him in silver to contain the plague, and then he rises from the dead, and he's a Demon Prince covered in silver. So you can see that like my story for Nurgle didn't change, and my story for Khorne didn't change. There's still going to be Knights of the White Wolf, but the details change as I work. I try to be spontaneous when it comes to the details. I think I got time for one more question from Arden Makes Things. Oh, Arden Makes Things. Yeah, that's a cool YouTube channel. You should check him out. He does some pretty cool stuff. Not a very big channel. You guys should give him more follows. But he asks, if you were hypothetically locked in a room until you kitbashed a whole army with one kit from any game system, which kit would you use? Also, maybe which army? That's probably the hardest question. I already mentioned my 3 favorite kits in the beginning. Chaos Knights, Putrid Blight Kings, and Skull Crushers. I feel like those can be modified into any kind of fantasy knights if you shave the symbols off. So easy answer would be one of those 3 kits probably. But realistically, I don't know, probably some historical kit, because it's really easy to make a fantasy army out of historical stuff. And it doesn't even have to be knights. Like you could really easily do a whole army for Turnip 28 with just Napoleonic miniatures and like rocks from your garden and dirt and you're good. And really anything like that. Just get any historical kit and go outside and find trash and you've got a really cool army. All right, I actually want to ask some questions to you guys. What sort of things do you want to see from this channel going forward? I'm happy to continue on my course that I'm currently on. Nothing makes me happier than just sitting down to do my hobby, pointing a camera at my hands while I work on one project from start to finish in a single video. But do you guys want to see more vloggy stuff like this? Let me know. Do you guys want to see meta tutorials, like videos on how I make videos, or maybe videos on how I make zines? Do you guys want lore videos? Do you guys want battle reports? I don't know if I'll do battle reports. I would be kind of interested though in doing like a narrative battle report where there's not even any dice rolling and you don't even see people. It's really more of just like a story of what happened. Kind of like what I said with that Anna Palanchek book. Reading her battle reports on her blog, which I'll link down in the description, it's kind of more like reading a graphic novel because there's like pictures and she tells like a story. It's really cool. I think it might be fun to try to do a video like that if I can figure out how to make it interesting. But I kind of did that sort of thing with my recap of Nemo, and in these lore zines that I make are basically a battle report of what happened at Nemo. What was that noise? Anyway, yeah, these zines that I make are basically a narrative battle report of what happened at Nemo, but just told in story form. So it might be fun to try to do a video like that if I can figure it out. All right, this video is getting way longer than I wanted it to be, but I'll be back to do this again for my next channelversary, channel update next year. Unless you guys are just clamoring for more vloggy videos, then I'll do more vloggy videos. But the core of my channel isn't gonna change. I'm not gonna stop or even slow down doing the type of videos that I've been doing, because that's just what makes me happy. And I'm not trying to become a professional YouTuber. I'm just doing what I wanna do, and you guys seem to like it. So if you're here for more of what I've been doing, don't worry, I'm not changing that. Thank you again for subscribing and watching this video to the end. There'll be links down in the description for all of the artists that I mentioned. And find me on Instagram. I'm KitBashChaos on there as well. There's probably an underscore in it, I think. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.